The Senate returns to session today after the summer break, and now just 3 weeks until the funding deadline and a possible government shutdown. Now, plans for a deal have stalled, and Democrats are trying to obstruct the president's agenda strictly for political purposes. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is preemptively, though, placing the blame on the GOP if a shutdown happens. Listen.
Will you shut down the government over it?
The government, if there's a government shutdown, the Republicans control the White House and they control Congress. It'll be them that shuts things down.
Of course, Meet the Press so willing to give him that platform there to blame the GOP. I'm pleased to bring in this Senator of Alaska, Dan Sullivan, to talk about this. Senator, welcome in. So good to have you here on Newsline. So deadline's just a few weeks away. Tell us some of the measures that the GOP is already implementing so that doesn't happen, even though Cory Booker is trying to look into a crystal ball here already.
Yeah, Bianca, thanks. It's a great question. It's an important question. Look, we're working hard on making sure the government is funding. Before we went on our August recess, we passed a number of appropriations bills. And, you know, we're going to try and get those conferenced with the House and signed into law by the president. But look, it's clear if there's going to be a government shutdown, and the GOP is united, we don't want a government shutdown. But if there is going to be one, it's going to be a Schumer shutdown. You might remember in March, the Democrats almost shut down the government. They didn't, but Schumer just took all kinds of grief from his far left. So he's very scared of his far left, the far left, Cory Booker included. They want a government shutdown. This is their so-called way to fight back against President Trump. And it'll be a Schumer shutdown if it happens. We don't want that. But, you know, Schumer's driven by the far left of the party, and the far left certainly isn't good for America.
Right. And they want that narrative. You know, Alaska is a very special place, and we saw that historic meeting between President Trump and Putin. But you call it the center of America's security, energy, and Arctic future. Talk to us, Senator. There's a $25 billion provision in the big, beautiful bill to put in investments in Coast Guard capabilities, Arctic defense, Golden Dome legislation. Tell us about what is happening that all Americans need to know right there in your home state.
Well, Bianca, there's so much going on in Alaska. You know, Billy Mitchell, the father of the United States Air Force, called Alaska the most strategic place in the world. And it is. And you saw when the president had the summit in Alaska, so much of our nation's strength comes from Alaska. Of course, our energy, you know, our what I call our pillars of military might, missile defense, over 100 fifth-generation fighters located in Alaska, the critical area for securing our Arctic interests. And the One Big Beautiful Bill builds on all of that. As you mentioned, we have a huge plus-up of our military including the Golden Dome. That's the president's great vision for missile defense. Alaska is the cornerstone of missile defense for the whole nation in terms of radar systems, in terms of ground-based missile interceptors, and we're going to build up our Coast Guard, which we need. But look, you're probably seeing this, but our adversaries know how important Alaska is. We've had Russian incursions into our airspace just in the last 2 weeks, 4 different times. Our great military goes and intercepts these Russians, but the Russians and Chinese are all over the Arctic, the areas around Alaska, and we need our military and military infrastructure to be built up to protect this key area of America, and that's what the One Big Beautiful Bill does.
You know, you speak about the military, and you are a member of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. You had introduced legislation that President Trump has recently signed, a protective order for the Veterans Act, which is greater accountability. Talk to us about the importance of that and the president here working hand in hand with what you put in place, Senator.
Well, look, the last administration, the VA, just got out of control. The VA is really important, the Veterans Administration. But here in Washington, D.C., the bureaucrats in D.C. are much more focused on kind of keeping their own interests first and foremost, not the veterans issues, Like in Alaska, you know, Bianca, we have more veterans per capita than any state in the country, in the great state of Alaska. So my bill was about accountability. If the Secretary of the VA is going to give pay raises, you can't have a budget shortfall. Basic accounting and basic accountability for the VA. I'm glad the president recently signed my bill, but we need to take care of our veterans first, not the bureaucrats in the Veterans Administration, and that's what my bill focuses on.
Well, certainly important legislation that is now law. Senator Dan Sullivan, I know you're working with this to avert a government shutdown as well. So thanks for some of your insight today. We always appreciate hearing what's happening in the Arctic Circle as well, such a strategic and important part of our country. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Bianca.